that revealed that Old Timers Day will return. And it will happen on Saturday, August 27th. Will take place around 5 p.m. The gates that day will open at 4:10 p.m. So we encourage everybody to include those timing elements in your pieces. But with us today, as you all know, we have very special guests, people that are very familiar to you all, to this organization. And I'll begin, the first being Robin Ventura. Robin was a member of the 2000 National League pennant winning team and especially noted for his historic Grand Slam single in Game 5 of the NLCS versus the Braves back in Shea Stadium. Also joining us is Daniel Murphy. Murph was a member of the 2015 National League pennant winning team and MVP of the NLCS versus the Cubs, and went on a historic tear, hitting a postseason record 6 home runs in 6 straight games, which we all remember fondly. So with that, Cliff Floyd will also be joining us. He has a commitment on MLB Network, so he'll be joining us shortly, and we'll make sure to get him in the fold and introduce him when he's able to join. But I'm going to ask each player to make an opening remark, just generally about their excitement of returning for the event and what they are looking forward to most. So with that, Robin, I think we'll begin with you because you go back the furthest. So I'll turn it over to you for some opening remarks. Thank you.
Well, thank you. No, I'm actually excited to get back there. I think, anytime you can go back and you get guys that you played with, and I don't know about getting in uniform. I'm going to have to work on that a little bit, shape up a little bit, but it's just fun to be around the guys and see a lot of people that are very familiar and are friends, lifelong friends. And, I'm excited. And the fans, I mean, I don't know if they really want to watch this kind of baseball, but, it's fun to get out there and just kind of reconnect.
Thank you, Robin. Murph, we'll turn it to you.
Yeah, thank you, Harold. To be honest, I was really humbled that Jay had reached out. This was the first year I had gone without baseball, and it was fun in that time of reflection this past year to look back and think about like the decade that myself and then my growing family spent there. Like I grew up in that organization. I hope I grew up. I have to ask other people whether or not I grew up by the time my family went on to another adventure. So like it was humility to be asked. Jay's really difficult to say no to for me because I love Jay. And I think like Robin said, an opportunity to come back, and I think it's really cool that Mr. Cohen wanted to restart this. Sounds like it was spurred by the fans. I'm with Robin. Don't expect too much. I've been hitting a lot more golf balls and doing a lot more car lines than I have been doing any sort of baseball. But I think to Robin's point, it'll be a lot of fun, and I'm kind of excited to get back in the locker room if they'll let us. You know what I mean? I don't know what the rules are just yet.
Thank you, Murph. We're all sure that neither of you would have trouble waking up and being able to swing the bat again. So wanted to also add a note that the list that came out, or the players that are included on the press release, that's just a preliminary list, that there is many more to come, and those will be revealed as we go through the weeks and months leading up to the game. And a reminder for fans can act on getting tickets to the game by simply going to Mets.com/tickets. So thank you for that. We're going to turn it over to the Q&A portion, and we will take all your questions for either Robin or Daniel. Just indicate who you're directing your question to either player or both. And reminder to use the raise your hand tab at the bottom of your screen to ask a question. We will begin. The first question will come from Tim Healy. Tim, your line is open.
Hey guys, my question is for Daniel. I think when the announcement came out today, some people were rattled a little bit in a lighthearted, good-natured way that Daniel Murphy, 36-year-old Daniel Murphy, is coming to Old Timers Day. What was your reaction when Jay first invited you, and did you have any thoughts along those lines?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm about to be 37 here, so I don't know if that's a feather in my cap or not. But I would say my initial reaction to Jay, really, I have such a fond place in my heart for the Mets and what they meant to my career and growing up, and to be able to look back on that, like when he said and invited us, my family, I was really excited. And then, you know, I couldn't still play by any stretch of the imagination, but I guess I'll probably be about the youngest one there. So that is, I would say, in a lighthearted way, quite comical. So yeah, with that, and then my wife as well, she wouldn't want to miss an opportunity to go to New York and express herself. So hopefully it'll be a bit of a couples trip for us as well too.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Next question, Ron, we'll go to your line.
Hey, Robin. For someone who lived through the 90s and then the start of testing in your final seasons, do you think without testing this winter, would you think fans will be suspicious of any players who show up when the season starts bulked up?
Say that again.
Having lived through the steroids era and the start of testing, do you think fans will be suspicious if any players show up bulked up at the start of the season, whenever it starts?
I think they always would be, but I don't get the question. Like I
Well, there's
don't
no drug testing this offseason.
really.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's the first I've heard of it, but yeah, I think that would just be a natural reaction. I think even when there was testing, somebody showed up big, there was still, I mean, I think people still question it. So I don't see any reason why that would change.
Okay. Thank you.
I didn't know that. Thanks for letting me know.
Next up, Eddie Coleman, your line is open.
Hey guys, good to see you. One question for each guy. Robin, first, you wore a lot of uniforms, Robin, and you managed too. I just wondered where the Mets fit into the picture for you as far as your career and coming back here for Old Timers Day.
It's a very special place. You know, I think the team I was on was very tight knit. The people who worked there, we were all, I mean, I did your radio shows half the time. So Fox had Remax. Nobody more real estate than Remax. I can remember that. But it's just a special place. You know, there was great guys on that team. You know, the staff, even, you know, Jay, Shannon. It holds a special place for me. And I had a great time when I was there. I loved it. I really did. And it factors in a lot of things, but it'll always be very special to me.
Thanks for making my job easier too, by the way. And for Murph, I had to laugh, Murph, kind of an offshoot of the other question that you got too, because I just wondered how you felt being lumped into with Cliff and Robin as an old timer.
Well, look at the back of their baseball cards, and I'll take that lumping right there anytime, Eddie. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too. How do you feel about coming back in kind of a short time and being at Citi Field again?
Yeah, missed it in the 2020 season, unfortunately. Didn't get a chance to see you guys there, and but yeah, it hasn't been that long. My wife has actually been back. There's a prom series event that with her charity that she was up at Citi Field for, that Cabernet, now Conforto, they got married, helped her with. But yeah, it'll be. I'm very excited to come back. Then when Jay asks, like, my initial thought was, yes, I see myself as a Met because of just the the years that we spent there, you know, coming up through the system, the relationships that I built in the minor league system, like Yuri's Familia and Juan Lagares, and I came up with these guys, and then Cliff Floyd, he's coming on later. But when I think of David, like I observed David as much as I felt like, you know, I could, and watched him the way he went about it. But he taught me so much about baseball and what it looked like to be a professional. And he would always talk about Cliff. And so, like, yeah, Queens has a very special place in my heart.
Gotcha. Thanks, Murph.
Cheers.
Thanks, Murph. Joel Sherman, we'll come to your line next.
Since Ron Blum was nice enough to open up non-old timers days question, I actually have one in that vein for Daniel also, just because before he retired, you are on the executive committee, Daniel, of the Players Association and involved in a lot of the 2020 stuff. I wonder, sitting and watching this as someone who understands the people involved, the issues involved, what you think about where we are right now, and if you're hopeful about resolution without too much further blood being drawn here.
Hey, Joel.
Hey.
I'm optimist and a bit of an agreeable person by temperament. So yes, I am hopeful. I would be more hopeful after the owners' meetings in Orlando if we could have a discussion with the union. There's been a bit of tension since the last time they were able to get in the room together. So watching it from afar, I think reasonable discussion is only going to happen probably, it seems like, in the room. And so let's see if we can, you know, hopefully come out of maybe today or tomorrow, the next couple of days, with a bit of a schedule. Because, well, as a baseball player, the bell rings here pretty soon. Not for me anymore. Like, you know, I have tea times ish, but we're only a handful of days away from the scheduled start of spring training. And I saw the waste management was starting. And when I would see the waste management, there's a lot of green out there, and all the green would make me think it's time for camp. And so, and once we leave for camp, we don't come back after that adventure. You hope for a long, long time. And so, you know, I'm certain there's probably, I say certain, I'm sure there's anxiety on both sides, but some reasonable discussion sure seems like it, hopefully it's in the cards.
Thanks, Murph.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, Jerry Beach, your line's open.
Hey guys, great to see you. Hope you're doing well. I got two quick questions for Robin and one for Murph. Robin, how is the college experience going? Are you still in school? Have you finished the degree? And you can talk a little bit about the experience of coming back to campus as a coach.
It's been great. You know, I think, you know, one of the comforts of coming here is I'm familiar with the people that I'm coaching with. Josh is our head coach. His dad was my coach. And then we got Matt Holliday, his brother, is here as a volunteer. So him and I together. And then we have Rob Walton, that was a pitching coach on USA stuff, that he was here when I was a freshman. So we're all familiar with each other. And, you know, it's a place I like. I like being here. I love the age. It's just been a lot of fun to be able to, you know, just go in the cage and try and help kids get better. And I think that's, you know, Matt and I, that's the biggest thing, you know, for us is trying to help these kids.
And you got a good quote in today's press release about the popularity of the Grand Slam single, and, you know, more popular than if it left the yard. If you have one thing you have to imitate in August, is it going to be the Grand Slam single or the Piazza at Yankee Stadium flopping on the tarp during a rain delay?
Our kids here found that Piazza clip. They're pretty good at going on the internet and finding things, but I don't know if I could actually run on a tarp. You know, I think, well, I as a matter of fact, I think the only thing I can do is hit a single anymore anyway. So that's probably going to be the closest thing. Who knows? I mean, you never know. It could come out.
And Murph, I was wondering, you know, you said how happy you are to come back to Citi Field, and I wondered, you know, there was never really a chance for you to say goodbye 6 years ago. You had that great postseason. You went to the World Series, and then, you know, they didn't really make you an offer. You went to Washington. What's it going to be like for you to come back? Is it a chance for you to kind of put a period on that end of that chapter that maybe you didn't get the chance to in free agency?
Hey, Jerry. I would say, first off, the Mets, the first time that me and my family were able to come back in 2016, did a really, really cool and humbling tribute when we came back, and then got us the fans a standing ovation, and also my first at bat, which was unexpected and really, really appreciated. And then they proceeded to boo me a bit, which was completely understood. So from that perspective, not so much. I'd say maybe the start of another adventure, and not to, the Mets did make a qualifying offer that we ended up saying no to, and entered the open market that offseason. But to your point, I would say, or your question is perhaps the start of a new adventure, more than a period, because there'll be so many I would say emotions that come kind of flooding back, especially if they let me in the home clubhouse again. Oof, that might be wild.
Thanks.
Let's go next to Pat Ragazzo. Pat, go ahead.
Hey guys, this one's for Daniel, more on the topic of 2015, but can you describe that emotion of, or that feeling when you look back of how locked in you were, and just the overall run that you guys had to the World Series in 15?
Yeah. One of the things when I think back of that, I think of like the starting pitching and what a position, how well they were throwing the ball that we were able to run at you, especially in that 4-game set into the Cubs when Matz and Jake and all got to throw. And then as far as like getting in that sort of moment for an extended period of time, my wife and I look at each other. We really didn't talk about it because I didn't want to really touch it, because I didn't think it was real, if that makes sense. It was like, if I talk about this too much, it may go away. And I really didn't want it to go away, because winning postseason games is about as much fun as I've ever had, especially with that group of guys and the journey we had gone on that year. So yeah, I would say things felt much slower. And when at the plate, they never really felt super slow on defense. They felt slower at the plate. And when my eyes said go and swing and do something, my body did what it was asked to do. So, and then cracked a couple homers.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Roseman, your line is open.
Thanks, Harold. I've got one question for Robin and one for Daniel. So, Robin, you, when you were a member of the White Sox, I think you were able to be part of a 1998 Yankee Old Timers game. And in 2003, you were a member of the Yankees Old Timers game. I'm just wondering if at that Old Timers game, what the feeling for you seeing all those players, especially DiMaggio, and did you and DiMaggio talk hitting streaks? And for Murph, you find yourself in a unique position as an old timer, but two of the current Mets were your teammates in Max and Jake. So you have that unique perspective of being a teammate of both of them. So what do you think Met fans can expect from both of them, and the experience you're going to have is seeing them and looking at you as an old timer? Thanks.
Yeah, I do remember even managing. I there was an old timers game there. It's just, I don't know. There's just some good about seeing people come back and be in the stadium. And, Mr. DiMaggio was, I don't believe he was in uniform when he came over, but I had met him in 1988. And
Clips on there?
He was very kind, and he did come over and see me. And, I think, I think for him walking in, it's almost like if Sandy Koufax walks in, there's just an aura about them that, people pay attention. And I think even for our players that were in there, that he came over and walked through our clubhouse is pretty special. And so, those things are good to get those people back together. I know, even at the Yankees, when I was managing, Yogi came over before he passed away, which was pretty special. And, I think the more that we can see these guys that have been out of the game for a while, I mean, much longer than I have, but it's special.
Hey, Mark. I actually got a chance to go and watch Jake pitch last year in Atlanta. So he was having such a special season that I thought if he got that close, I was going to take my oldest son, Noah, and go and see him. And we did. And he gave up 3 in the first and then went and grabbed 16 punch outs, if I'm not mistaken. So at that moment, I knew that being in the stands was exactly where I was supposed to be. And for, Mets fans to then, I think, be able to add, not think, but be able to add Max. He was such a unique competitor when I got to Washington that it took me a bit to warm up to him, because as a position player, well, we participate hopefully in baseball games like every single day, and the pitchers don't, starters especially. It's like once every fifth day. So Max would be able to get and would put himself in the zone. And when I first got there, I was like, man, this guy's kind of freaking me out a little bit every fifth day. But then I come to appreciate that that's how he competes. And then you can see it on the mound. And then he doesn't come out of that level of competition and focus until the skipper comes and grabs the ball from him. So between that, Jacob's temperament, I would say, is a bit different than that. But I think it'll be a ton of fun when we get baseball to watch those two guys go 1-2.
Thank you, Murph. We have the pleasure of Cliff Floyd joining us. Thank you, Cliff, for being with us. Reminder to everybody, Cliff was a member of the 2006 NL East champs, played with the Mets from 2003 to 2006, hit a club-leading 35 home runs in 2005. So, Cliff, if we could ask you to just provide a remark about the excitement of returning for this event and what you're looking forward to.
Oh, I think it's going to be great, man. I really do. Other than the fact that I'm terrified of hurting myself, doing something stupid, it should be fun. That's always has been in the back of your mind, when you think about these things, because, we're a kid at heart, but hell, when you get to this point in our lives, you got to be careful. So it's going to be fun to see the fans. It's going to be fun to be back in the city. Obviously everybody hitting me up thinking I'm going deep for some reason. I have no idea why they think I'm doing balls over the fence, but I'm definitely looking forward to being around the boys again and putting the uniform on and, having a blast for a couple of days.
Thank you for that. And we have a few more questions. And of course, now Cliff is part of the mix. So indicate who your question is intended for. With that, next, we're going to go to Mike. We're coming to you. Your line is open. Mike Puma.
One question for Robin, one for Cliff. First for Cliff, just you played for, several different teams throughout your career. I'm just wondering, when you look back on your Mets years, what did your Mets tenure mean to you?
Man, I had so many different emotions about playing New York. I think the biggest was the understanding of, what your job was. And then the fans, man, played a big part in you putting your big boy pants on and being real, being true. Like, you see some of the stuff happen today, you just saying to yourself, you shaking your head going, no, that's not how you want to start. That's not, you just played the game different in New York. Wish we had won more, wish I was a little bit more healthy. But I think when you look at my 4 years, I learned a lot about myself playing New York. I really did. It was great. We had some, big ups, some few downs. But for the most part, it was tremendous for me. I learned a lot about myself and how I was supposed to go out there and play the game. And I think one thing, as a guy that played for a different amount of teams, New York, the fans, they can just, there's some about how they just can feel the weakness, feel that, like, you know what, we know what you're about, whether you real or fake. They can pull that fake out pretty easily. So you come to New York to play, you need to step your mind up, step your game up.
And Robin, if I remember correctly, I think it was 4 years ago when the Mets had managerial opening, your name surfaced as somebody they had maybe wanted to talk to, or maybe they did talk to. And if I remember correctly, you didn't want to be considered for the job. I'm just wondering what went into that decision.
I was just into doing something else. At that time, it was just a good time to step away. I had some family stuff I needed to take care of. And that was really the biggest issue for me. And that kind of took precedence over taking interviews or doing anything like that. So that was the biggest reason for that. It's nothing against the Mets or I would have had the same reaction if anybody would have asked me to interview. So it had nothing to do with anything. But
Do you have any
stuff.
you have any aspirations you think maybe down the line to get back in MLB as a manager?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be a good spot, and they would have to want me to do it. I think that's another thing to interview. They'd have to ask you, but yeah, I think eventually you kind of get drawn back into Major League Baseball one way or another if you played it long enough. It just there's just something about it. I mean, I love what I'm doing right now, but there's nothing saying that down the road it doesn't have to be a manager or anything else. It's just that's kind of what you know. And I think for all of us on this thing, we can do little hobbies of different things, but this is what we know.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, guys. Mark Healy, your line's open.
This question is for Cliff. Cliff, it's been 20 years since I interviewed you, but I wanted to ask you about, you were always considered a leader. And I remember when we spoke for our interview, you had talked about how important it was for you as a veteran player who had come back from injury, a catastrophic injury early in your career, to deal with young guys like Jose Reyes and David Wright and take them under your wing. And, now as a veteran, someone who has, certainly did a lot in the game as a broadcaster and, been so, important to the Met fan base. Do you think Old Timers Day this could be like a start of, the Mets really celebrating their history and kind of taking advantage of players like you, who accomplished so much here, and not just as a player, but also as a leader? Is that something is that a responsibility that you're going to embrace?
Well, I think for us, I think for everybody that's coming back, I mean, it's something big for all of us as players, as brothers. Well, I mean, that's what we played the game. We played the game, not for patting yourself on the back for doing something that somebody helped me get to. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know how to be a leader. I wanted to be a leader, but there's due diligence in that. And so, on the flip side, I learned from Marquise Grissom, Larry Walker, and all those cats in Montreal when I got to the game. And it was like, you can bottle this up and pass it along, or you can waste it. And so in my mind, I felt like that was big. And I had to take that upon myself to do that in New York, especially in New York. Hell, I mean, every night I was like, you got to answer the questions why we took a L, or what, and speak the truth. But it's pretty simple, run, play hard. I don't think it's harder than that. I mean, you start putting, other stuff on there, it's eyewash, bro. For real. It's like, it's just too much. I mean, you play hard, and I think the biggest thing I told D Wright and Jose, if I remember one of them, was make time for yourself. And that was it. Make time for yourself. This is New York. Then you're gonna get the media. Be smart about what you say. Make time for yourself. So I'm looking forward to this day. I really am. I think all the boys just get out there and have a good time. Have the fans put some smiles on people's faces, sign some autographs, kiss some babies. Well, I don't know if we're allowed to kiss babies with this damn COVID, but we'll
Watch it.
Thanks, Cliff. We are going to go next. Tim Britton, your line's open.
Hey guys, this is for all three. I guess Daniel might have a harder time since he didn't play there as often. But what are your memories of playing in Shea Stadium, and what made that stadium stand out among the others that you played in during your career?
Go ahead, Rob. Yeah, it's like when Cliff was just talking about being in New York, and you need to be spot on. They can figure out phonies and bad players, false hustle, all that stuff. And I just remember when you walk from the locker room to the dugout, there's that hallway. And when you go down the steps, before you make it onto the field, you better be ready. And I'm talking BP. I mean, it's like you better be a Doberman with your ears pinned back and be ready and be prepared and be purposeful when you go out there. And there's just a certain noise that Shea had that other places didn't have. I don't know if it's acoustics, the fan, stadiums now are built different and they sound different. The noise kind of comes, when I was managing, I just noticed noise goes above the field, and at Shea, it came down to the field. So you felt it in your feet, you felt it in your legs. If Piazza hit a home run, that place is on wheels, the stadium can move around. And it felt like those wheels might have come off the tracks a couple times when Mike would hit a big homer. And, I can't think of another stadium that's like that the noise came down and you felt it inside your chest. And there was something great about it. And the highs were the highs. And then if it was low, that place was super quiet and difficult as well. But I think, when you think about the good stuff, the noise that a full house at Shea has is like none other than any place I've ever been.
Period. I know, D, you can speak to it too. I mean, it was so true. Like, I used to always check myself, Robin, right at that point with going on the field thinking, boy, you better step your game up today. Whatever you feel, you better put it to the side and get your butt on that field ready to go at 3:00. So the fan, coming from where I came from and playing in the football stadium down in Miami, you would think, I didn't play in front of a lot of fans. And then it was like, oh, snap, you're in front of a lot of fans that actually know the game and actually understand what's going on. So I loved it. I always felt like that's what I needed. I need to be pushed. I need to be kicked. I need to be put in a position where I'm challenged every day to be great. And not to say the other places weren't that, on top of their game. It's just New York is different. And it's a reason why it's bright lights, big city. It was different. And I felt the vibe every night I stepped on that field, whether they was booing my butt to be better or cheering me because I was doing my thing. But it was always good to be in that stadium when we was rocking. I'm telling you, it was something different.
Well, I played 2 months in Shea, and I feel like it held more than stadiums do now, if I'm not mistaken. I feel like it held like 55,000, but I was like 23 years old and wasn't entirely certain I was in the right position being at Shea Stadium at that time. I had just gotten called up. So to see this thing, I stayed at the Holiday Inn across the street as well too, but kind of like unfold in front of you. And then they let me inside of it. And then I came down that same tunnel that those two guys, that Robbie and Cliff came down, but it was a bit dark, but like you just opened up into it and then the bell rang. And I think that competition is a choice. And I think that when the guys out there, the Mets, when we chose to compete, I think the fans rewarded that because you can see that. I think you can see that when somebody fully engages in what they're trying to accomplish, win or lose, like I think the fans recognize that. And so not as long as those guys, but certainly impactful walking through Shea.
Thank you.
Eddie, back to you. Eddie Coleman.
Thanks, Harold. This one's for Cliffy. And Cliff, by the way, David still talks about carrying your bags onto the plane. Still remembers that fondly.
Yo, hey.
Your first full year was 1994. You came up the year before, but with what's going on today, Cliff, when you think back, Lisa, at that time in Montreal, but what's your thoughts with what's going on today when you think back to that being really your first introduction to the game in 94?
Man, everything has changed, and D can speak to it differently. Robin and I was sort of around the same, but D can speak to it differently about how the game evolves and changes. And every situation is different. And so right now, being outside looking in, I mean, there's some similarities to why you have this going on. But, for the most part, I'm being 100 as I possibly can, man. You got to get a deal done. I mean, baseball needs to be played. Daniel spoke to a minute ago. When they get back out there, I know it has to be sooner or later, but I know you got to dot I's and cross T's, but it's just tough to watch, especially when the world is going through what we're going through. So I think that in itself is a little bit different than 94. So it's always tough. Negotiations is always tough. It's tough in every sport, not just sports and the world. And negotiations are always tough, but as you can tell, these are very uncomfortable conversations to have because it's just, it's two sides that's trying to get what they want. So hopefully it gets done sooner than later.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, guys. Jerry, back to you. I think you had one follow-up.
Thanks, Harold. Daniel, your comment about going to see Jake last year in Atlanta kind of triggered this for me. You always had a really photographic memory of games, and like we'd ask you afterwards about a certain segment, where guys were placed in the shift and the pitch that was thrown to another batter and things like that. I wondered, did that immediately come back to you when you were at the game in Atlanta with your son? Were you seeing the game like you would as a player? And do you think, I should ask you this in August probably, but when you come back to City, will that come back to you as well in a place you played so many games? Will you watch that game or even the old timers game like you'd watch a game, as a player?
I think to answer the first kind of question, when I got to the stadium, I started observing. We got there for batting practice. So I would say I observed how the ball was coming off the bat of the guys to see who felt like maybe they were locked in and what adjustments they were trying to make with the ball flight. And then when the game started, it was more that one because the Braves came out and I feel like they swung it like every first pitch. They were swinging that game as soon as they came out. And Jake and Mac behind the plate, it seems like they recognized that after they kind of gotten beat. It was about the first four batters. I think the leadoff guy, switch hitter, hit a triple anyway, and then Austin Riley hit a 2-run homer, and all of a sudden it was 3-0, and then, nobody touched Jake anymore. So I did observe it that way. I would say for the old timers game, I'll try to observe it. It will happen significantly slower than my brain will probably want it to, or my body will move a lot slower. But yeah, I try to, as much as I can. I still have little ways I watch the game, as I'm sure that Robin does, and he gets to see it all the time, and Cliff as well too.
Thanks.
Gentlemen, Cliff, Robin, Daniel, thank you very much for all your memories today and your sentiments. It's really appreciated. We all look forward to seeing you on August 27th. Again, a couple reminders that we're hopeful that fans will be in their seats that day by 4:45 p.m. Festivities will begin at 5. And again, this is just a preliminary list that you received in the press release today, that over the weeks and months ahead, you'll get a much more inclusive list of some of the other players that'll be returning to participate. So with that, thank you all very much again for joining, and we look to